Today, we're digging into a story that just sounds made up. It's about a famous Buddhist abbot who basically became a CEO and the massive corruption scandal that threatened to bring down a spiritual empire. But here's the really wild part. We're going to try and make sense of this whole mess using one of the oldest books in the world, the I Ching, or the Book of Changes. So the big question is, can this 3,000-year-old text actually give us the key to understanding a totally modern meltdown? Okay, let's get into it. All right, here's how we're going to break this down. We'll start with his incredible rise, what we're calling the dragon's ascent. Then we'll see how that success turned into a serious problem, creating a kind of fake faith that was just hiding a total systemic collapse. And finally, we'll get to the reckoning and the timeless warning that this whole story leaves us with. So our story really kicks off with this one guy, Abbot Yongxin. He was a man with some serious vision and ambition. When he took over the Shaolin Temple, it was so run down that there was literally grass growing inside the main hall. But he was about to change all of that. And this is where the I Ching gives us our first clue. This initial explosion of creative energy, this drive, it lines up perfectly with hexagram 1, which is called Chan. It's the symbol of pure, raw ambition, leadership, and that kind of unstoppable, self-strengthening spirit. And Yongxin had that in spades. And this is where you can see the story split right down the middle. On one side, you've got the abbot's mission. Revive the temple, spread Zen Buddhism. But on the other side, you've got the reality he created. A CEO running 17 companies, pulling in billions, and walking around in a robe that cost over $20,000. The line between monk and mogul wasn't just blurred, it was completely gone. But here's the kicker. Built right into that same hexagram, that same symbol of ambition, there's a huge warning. There's a line that reads, "The arrogant dragon has regrets." It's basically saying that a dragon that flies too high, that gets drunk on its own power, it's gonna come crashing down. I mean, talk about perfect foreshadowing for what was about to happen. And for a good while, man, that dragon was flying high. The temple became famous, it got rich, you had everyone from Mike Tyson to the Queen of England stopping by for a visit. Shaolin wasn't just a temple anymore, it was a massive global brand. This golden age, it actually has a name in the I Ching, hexagram 11, Tai. It represents this perfect moment of harmony when everything is just clicking. But you have to remember, the I Ching is all about cycles, and a peak is always followed by a valley. And here's why. A prosperity pretty quickly turned into just shocking commercialization. I mean, all of a sudden, a single stick of incense that you would offer at the temple, that would set you back 6,000 yuan. And it didn't even stop there. You wanted to buy a so-called Shaolin secret manual? Yeah, that'll be 9,999 yuan, please. Sacred wisdom had officially become a luxury item. This is the flip side of that peak harmony. It's hexagram 12, P, which means stagnation and decay. The I Ching is basically warning us that when you let commercialism eat away at your spiritual core, the whole system just starts to rot from the inside out. And it doesn't matter how successful it looks on the surface. So as this decay set in, a new phase began. The focus shifted to appearance over reality, decoration over actual substance. The brand of Shaolin became way more important than the soul of Shaolin. And you know what? The I Ching has a name for this exact trap. It's hexagram 22B. It's all about adornment or grace. It recognizes that beautiful things are powerful, but it's a huge warning against getting lost in appearances. It makes you ask the tough question, is this real or is this just for show? And Yongxin's adornments, they were pretty over the top. His global business empire was all dressed up as cultural output. He collected political titles that acted like a shield. He even had plans for a $300 million resort in Australia. See, the point is, these weren't signs of spiritual health. They were a mask, hiding a core that was becoming deeply corrupt. But look, this wasn't just about one man's greed. For this to go on for so long, an entire system had to fail. The very foundation of the institution was starting to crack under the weight of this empire he'd built. And the I Ching has this really powerful image for this exact moment. Daguo, or great exceeding. The symbol is a roof beam, and it's bending under a weight it just can't handle anymore. It is the perfect metaphor for an institution that's right at its breaking point. So how did that roof beam start to bend? Well, first, nobody was really sure who owned what. The temple assets were technically state-owned, but the management was so fuzzy it made it easy to move money around. Second, the oversight was a total failure. A whistleblower dropped a report in 2015 with 72 different accusations, and it just got dismissed. Well, guess what? Years later, those accusations were proven to be true. And third, the religious rules that were supposed to keep him in check were basically useless because his political status acted like a get-out-of-jail-free card. A system that's under that much stress just can't hold. The collapse was bound to happen. And that led to a major moment of reckoning. And maybe, just maybe, a chance for a rebirth. Now here, the I Ching offers this idea of a kind of cosmic rebalancing act, and it uses two hexagrams, sun, which is decrease, and yi, increase. Think about it. Yongxin's whole strategy was to decrease the foundation, the temple's integrity, to increase his own power at the top. The I Ching basically says, nope, that imbalance can't hold forever. A correction is coming. And wow, did that correction come dramatically. As the walls were closing in, it was reported that he actually tried to flee the country with 34 people. And this group allegedly included a number of mistresses and children he had fathered, which was, the final jaw-dropping violation of his vows as a monk. So after this unbelievable rise and this spectacular fall, what's the real lesson here? What's the timeless warning that this 3,000-year-old book helps us see in this very, very modern scandal? Let's just boil it all down. That first hexagram of ambition, Chen, teaches us that ambition without discipline is a recipe for disaster. The cycle of prosperity and decay, Tai and Pi, it's a huge warning to protect your core values, especially when things are going great. The bending beam of Da Gua shows us that strong systems matter way more than one powerful leader. And finally, the I Ching reminds us that even a crisis like this is an opportunity, a chance for real renewal after everything has fallen apart. Today, Shaolin's new leadership is going through this painful process of decommercialization. They're going back to basics, like farming their own food and offering free incense. And it leaves us with this one last powerful thought. Maybe it's only when all that commercial noise finally fades away that the real meditation bells, both in the temple and maybe inside ourselves, can truly be heard again.